Cool. I have a squeaky chair. There we go. Cool. So I am planning on, that's gay as hell. All right, cool. Hi. I want to talk about the games I've played in January this year, 2026, and I want to share a little bit of a plan that I have for the rest of this year in regards to making some way through my game backlog. My backlog is pretty extensive at this point. I need to actually write down and track everything in regards to what I want to play. I've written some stuff out because sometimes I feel that actually writing things out, if I have a goal, is better. And I think most people that are like self-help gurus say the same thing if you're trying to achieve a goal. So I wrote out a piece of paper, and on it is basically just a calendar in terms of the games that I plan, that I've started and I want to finish in a month. And then of course, everything below is just what I have for the backlog. The reason I'm doing this is I have close to 600 games in my library. I have family sharing with two buddies and one of my friend's brothers. And so our games collectively, before duplicates, ends up being right around 600 games. So I want to make some way through it. I know in myself in the past, I've struggled with actually finishing games, and that actually comes down to just a lot of things that I have in my personal life, is starting something and never actually finishing it. Before I get to that, I want to talk about the games I've played here this January, maybe some of the games I have planned coming up, and just talking about the games that I've played, right? So I'm limiting myself to 4 to 5 games, plus like a couple comfort games, a couple more games that don't really have a finish condition, games that are typically maybe like a survival game or just like an online multiplayer game, games that don't have a definitive win condition or like end credit scene, right? Roguelikes are another example, but I think some of those do have like actual win conditions, which is one of the ones I have on my list. So first thing I played, and actually was the end of December, was Skate Story, and I believe that game, I ranked it a 9 out of 10. I was incredibly inspired by playing Skate Story. I would have never seen it, I would have never heard about it if I didn't have family sharing with one of my friends who actually played the demo in one of the Steam Next Fests. And I was so impressed. Growing up skateboarding and never really being great at it, um, but always aspiring and really, really loving like the culture and just the feel of being on a board. I think it's clear that Skate Story embodies the actual feeling of riding a skateboard and the actual weightiness that riding a skateboard has. I've watched a couple of videos with Sam Ing talk about the fact that like Tony Hawk and Skate, like just the actual Skate games, like the Skate series by EA, there's no weight. It's very arcadey and it's fun. It's not a bad thing, but the process of performing an actual line in Skate Story takes a little bit of work, and it is incredibly rewarding. That's just gameplay wise, right? Visually, audibly, even narratively, I think this game absolutely excelled. It's significantly more abstract. It's very lo-fi, very indie in regards to its themes and its setup. Um, but I absolutely loved it. I thought it absolutely added to the game. I don't think there was any complaints into that. Basically, I would give this game a 10 out of 10. My only gripe, and it seems silly, but there's no there's no chapter select. There's 9 chapters in the game, and I would love to go back and play some of the bosses that you fight in the game. There's no chapter select, which is a little bit of a bummer. I would have loved to have seen that in there. And I also felt the game was a little too easy. There was points where you're on a timer and you're fighting a boss. You have to complete tricks and then stop to like land a combo. After you get like enough score and multiplier, and you have to stop before like the multiplier ends, and it gets harder to keep up with it. And there was a timer for a lot of these, and I never actually felt pressed. I felt like, man, I was like, I doubled the score that was needed, or almost sometimes tripled in a lot of instances the score that was needed to actually like clear some of like the actual like time segments, or I would finish a boss fight and I still have a minute and a half left. So those are my only two gripes. Everything else about the game, I feel like even introspectively, like I started skateboarding again because of that game. I keep the board in my car just in case if I'm somewhere and I want to pull it out again. Absolutely great. That was the end of December, so that's kind of, that whether that counts or not in the game log is subjective. I won't actually count it, but I will say that I've played it and I absolutely love that game. So, second game I beat was Pacific Drive. I only bought Pacific Drive actually because I mean, Expedition 33 literally won, I think, what is like 9 out of the 11 nominations that it was nominated for. And I was like, okay, well, eventually I'm gonna have to get around to this. And it was on Steam was doing like a thank you sale for all of the awards that they had gotten. So I was going to buy it. Steam told me that if I bundled it with another game from the publisher, Kepler, I believe is what their publisher brand is, um, I can get both games at a discount, at an even more discounted price. So I was like, cool. I've heard things about Pacific Drive. Maybe I'll try it. Played Pacific Drive first, and that game hooked me. Like 10 hours, the first 10 hours of the game, like 12 hours. Like I would be at work, I would be brushing my teeth in the morning. I was thinking about this game, thinking about all the things that had happened to me playing the game, the anomalies, the actual like progression, and sometimes even find like the narrative, thinking of the narrative, right? Um, Pacific Drive, in a short summary, is just a game that is a like survival extraction. You are in this totally like I think they call it the exclusion zone. It's totally like radiated, like sealed off from the rest of the world. You make a way in there kind of by accident, and then your goal to get out is to make it to the dead center, where the like kind of like the radiation and like this weird technology and these anomalies that appear are like most potent. But you got to like road trip your way through there, and when you're working your way through there, like it's survival extraction like roguelike, where every run you're able to go a little bit further, and you come a little bit more prepared, but then the conditions change, things get harder as you go through the inner walls to the innermost center. Um, Game was mysterious. I mean, everything about it, like the ultimately, it sold me on its atmosphere. Um, by the time I hit like the 15-hour mark, though, the 20-hour mark, it really fell off for me. Um, I just was no longer interested in the anomalies. I feel like I had seen most of them at this point, and they were maybe getting a little bit repetitive. Narratively, the game's it's probably its weakest point, and around that 20-hour mark when I was scavenging for like steel and scavenging for the same things again and again, um, I was finding myself like no longer side questing. I was just beelining for the story because I wanted to be done. I wanted to have put the bow on the game, say I loved it while I did, and not go through the grindiness. And I checked Steam reviews too, and it seems like there's a lot of people who put 40 to even up to 100 hours in the game, which applaud to you. Like if that's your game, that's awesome because I feel like it's a great game to be sucked into and like love. There's a lot of cool stories that come from it as well. I even plan on doing like an Iron Man run, which is just like the hardcore, like hardest game mode where it's just permadeath. I played a couple runs with that, and it is actually, I feel like it's a completely different game. The gameplay is completely different, but um, the sense of dread that the game can bring without being a horror game is really, really good. So I gave it 7 out of 10. It was good, and I think it had a strong grip at the beginning, and I don't think you can ever forget about that, especially having experiences with your first car, like being reminiscent in the game, because everybody I think has that experience, especially in America, as like memories of their first car being like maybe a junker or like not a new car, clearly a car with some problems, but still loving it and it always being reliable to some extent, doing the things that it's being a center point of like all of my teenage memories, right? Come from my childhood car. So I held a lot of good regard for the game, just being able to bring some of those thoughts back. So second game I beat would be Ball Pit. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 as well. It was good, a little repetitive at some points. I don't think I need to explain this one too much. It's just Brick Breaker roguelike with like a village building element that's very similar to Loop Hero, I think is what it's called. It's good. It's good. If it's your game, you like it, roguelikes are good. The combination effects are fun. It definitely is like a little bit of a dopamine thing, but I was missing a little bit more just in terms of like some of the gameplay elements. You would get some characters later on that like really change the way the game plays. And sometimes you like that, sometimes you don't. But I really liked the initial formula because Ball X Pit was like one of those games that I think I played for like 4 hours straight. Like I was laying in bed, like getting ready for bed, and I just had my controller with me and I just played it until like 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's good. I basically didn't technically beat the game. You have to complete the final level with 8 different characters. I did it with 4. So I might make some time to get around to actually finishing it, but I think I can say that I've seen the majority of the content. I don't know if there's anything else in New Game Plus, but I think it's fair to say that the hours I've put in, I've seen most of this game has to offer, and I can sign it off as being finished. Um, Really great pick. Honestly, a suggestion, like it wasn't in any of our Steam libraries, I had to add it, was the first Alan Wake. I played the first Alan Wake. My buddy has extremely high regard for the second Alan Wake. It's one of his favorite games ever. He said it was like a number 2 or number 3 pick. And so I was like, cool, I want to play it. And it sounds like you don't have to play the first one to know to follow up in the second one, because they kind of like fill you in like piece by piece. I mean, the game came out 12 years after the original. So I wanted to play the first one, played it. I think it ran me around 9 to 10 hours to beat. I think I got 51 or 52% of the actual, like, what is it, like coffee? You don't know, if you play the game, you know what I'm talking about. Like what are they called? Oh my God. Coffee thermos? Oh man, it's gonna bug me. I feel like it starts with a C, but I cannot remember what it's called. But no, Alan Wake, I really, really enjoyed it. Narratively, great game. Gameplay, I think it was just good enough. Like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like something to rave about, but it definitely kept me moving along. My buddy, we played it in 2 sessions. We just did 5 hours, one evening, 5 hours the next evening. And we just did like acts 1 through 3 and then acts 4 through 6. And my buddy was telling me, he was like, hey, like act 3, he's like, it's kind of a slog. And we were definitely feeling it. I think it was New Year's Eve when we played the first half of the game. I think it was like 2 a.m. in the morning, and we're still in Act 3. And I was like, what are we doing? Like, is this like, I thought I'd be like close at this point, just like kind of just doing the same similar combat scenarios. It's still like good, it's still engaging, but I was definitely getting a little bit tired of it. But then everything else after that, everything else before that made up for it. I gave it a 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 just for that part, and then gameplay, just a little more to be desired. So really excited to play the second one later on this year. What else? What else have I played? And I think that it's the last one. Last one is just No, I'm Not Human. I picked this up because it was recommended by a friend of mine, and it was a friend of my wife's as well. And typically they have very similar game tastes. My wife isn't a gamer like necessarily at heart. Granted, she is in the other room playing Against the Storm, like a city builder colony management game, which I've been kind of teaching her slowly, which I'm shocked by. That's a whole other like Gambit, more or less. Gambit? It's a whole other thing to talk about. It's a whole other discussion. But we played No, I'm Not Human. My wife loved that game. I got one of the endings. Like, I think we had put 2 or 3 hours into it at this point. We got like the first ending, and I felt really dissatisfied. I didn't like it initially. I thought I was going to put it down and just kind of be done with it, or just mark it as like an incomplete. Like, I don't know if I'll pick it back up again, because it's a lot of dialogue you're kind of going through. Because the game is just you walking in and out of a house, switching between day and night, answering the door for people that might be hostile, like skinwalker humans. You answer those doors at nighttime, and then in the daytime, whoever you've let inside, you can like talk to them, hear their stories, or like if you think they're a visitor is what they're called. If you think they're a visitor, you can choose to shoot them. And so, game. I didn't see a point in like going through all that again. But after doing like a little bit of research, I was like, sometimes I always stay away from spoilers just in case I want to go back to a game that I've played but haven't beat. I think sometimes it is worth going back and seeing what other people are talking about when it comes to a game. And yeah, I think that after watching a couple of videos of some of the character stories, and maybe that there is 10 distinct unique endings, I was like, okay, I feel like I got kind of like the cheap ending. Let's replay it and go back again. So I don't have a definitive score right now. My score sits at like a 5 or a 6. I feel like maybe, I don't know if my ratings are harsh or not, because I really feel like with things like film and video games, ratings are pretty dramatically different. I've definitely watched a way more 2-star movies than I've actually played 2-star video games, right? Like if it's like 2 out of 10 versus like, like for video games and movies, I've watched a lot crappier movies than I have played crappy games. But I do want to give it another try. I'm gonna go through another playthrough, maybe 2 more, and I can have more of a definitive answer. If I was to predict, I think I'd probably put it somewhere on. It probably would end up being like a 7 for me. But I think with horror games, especially some stuff that has a lot more, like, it's kind of like not necessarily psychological, but like philosophical, like the intention of the game is to be a little more philosophical and like kind of talk about moral dilemmas. I think usually has a little more worth. Like it should. I think it should be. I think with games with those premises, I think they maybe naturally just get ranked lower in my head because I'm missing a component of like gameplay per se. I'm like thinking about, okay, what did I do as a player to enjoy this? And it really is just like the experience, and like that's the point of playing a narrative game. So I'll get back to that. But the games I'm currently playing now, I don't have them written down, but I need to fill them in. Is I started playing Resident Evil 1, the remake. So I'm playing it with the tank controls on a PS4 controller. And my wife continues to tell me how boring this game is. Like, I mean, it's the very first like survival horror game I think of that genre. And it's clanky and its enemies are hard to fight. But I think maybe we just have to turn the lights off when we play that game and allow ourselves to be immersed a little bit more and get good at tank controls, because that's rough. I was like, oh man, I haven't played tank controls in a minute. So, but that's it. I have a whole list. It's probably got to be around like maybe 40 games right here. Almost all of them have a win condition. There's only like 2 that don't. I want to play Schedule 1 and Astroneer. Those are the 2 that like don't have, I don't think, an ending. Maybe Astroneer might. I don't know. I just know it's kind of more like a sandbox game. And then like I put a couple other like games on here that I think I'll try, but I don't know if I'll finish. And one of those is being E33 and Metaphor ReFantazio and Death Stranding. Like I played a little bit of Death Stranding. I don't know if I'll finish it, but those are the games. Those are the games. That's my short-ish review, and I'm gonna probably upload this, put it into the internet, clip it up a little bit, and just keep it for myself. If anybody else enjoyed watching, thank you for sitting this long through. And I'll have an update in February, and the plan to make a more in-depth review on Pacific Drive, because even though I only gave that game a 7 out of 10, I think it does so many things right when it comes to atmosphere and building a sense of dread and that love that you have with your first car, that I hope more people, I hope it's not just like a me thing. I think it's more of like I hope it's more of a universal experience. I want to share my time with the game and how that game, I think, is just very special in regards to its execution. So thank you and have a good afternoon. That was dumb as hell to say. Catch up. I don't even know how to end a video. What do you even say? See you later.